Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. Today's guest is Marek Kiczkowiak. Marek has been in ELT since 2009. He is a CELTA, Delta and a PhD. He currently runs an educational company, Academic English Now, where he helps PhD students and researchers write research papers. He grew the company from 0 to 70k a month and now shares his insights with English teachers who want to start a widely profitable teaching English business. The only regret I had about this podcast was it didn't go on for longer. Marek had some great insights, and his experience of going from failure to great success and onwards really inspired me, and I hope they inspire you too. Just a reminder that if you want to look at the links below in the podcast, you can join our mailing list. We have a lot of exciting things coming up in the magazine and the podcast for business owners, entrepreneurs in ELT. So please make sure to sign up and get ahead of the queue. And I hope you enjoy the podcast.
Hey everyone, buckle up for a new episode of the EFL Magazine Business Podcast, the one and only podcast made to help you launch your business or take your existing business to a level of success you could never have imagined. Whether you're a school owner, freelancer, publisher, or other entrepreneur, you're sure to pick up lots of actionable advice when you listen to the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. Remember to visit eflmagazine.com for great articles and features. Without further ado, here's your host, the founder of EFL Magazine, Philip Pound.
Great. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the latest episode of the EFL Magazine Business Podcast. And I'm really delighted today to have Marek Kiczkowiak. How did I do, Marek, on that one? You're pronouncing your name okay?
Perfect.
Oh,
Perfect. It was spot on.
Thank you. So it's been quite a while. We put out a podcast last week, and it's been February since I've done one. So if I'm a little bit ring rusty here, please forgive me. It actually, as some of you might know, and Marek putting out material that at the beginning you're terrible. You start to get good, and then if you lose practice, it can go revert to the beginning again. Is that your experience as well, Marek, putting out content that you felt a little bit, inept at the beginning and you just kind of found your feet with it, or what's your...
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that my YouTube videos are great now, but if you compare, my last YouTube video to the first one that I did, yeah, there's definitely a difference, and there's still a long way to go. If you compare my YouTube video to, let's say, more experienced and professional YouTubers, then you'll also see a difference. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I neglected to give you Marek's job title, professional moniker, whatever we want to call it. So Marek wasn't too hung up on that. He said you could just say whatever. But I'm just going to read it from your LinkedIn page. Your academic writing coach, helping researchers and PhD students write research paper for high impact journals. So we'll get around to that. And of course, the title of this podcast will be something like, this is working title, but it'll be different when the listeners hear it. Is How I Make 70k per month as an English teacher. Is that an okay title for you, Marek? It sounds okay so far.
That's a fine title. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Marek, I'd like to go back to the beginning of where I won't say met, but where we first encountered each other, I suppose, was when I started off the magazine about 2015. And at that time, you were very much involved in TEFL equity advocates, which you still are, as far as I know, native speakerism, and you submitted an article at that time, and I think it's the definitive one. Maybe you've written elsewhere, but on native speakerism. So what kind of prompted you to start TEFL equity advocates? And was it your own experience, maybe prejudice in the industry, or hearing from others? Where did it begin?
Yeah. I think as most non-native speakers experienced, I mean, when I tried looking for jobs back in the day, when I started teaching in like 2010, 2011, I mean, it was tough. Like all the jobs were for native speakers, or even if they didn't say they were, then they got back to me saying, no, we just hire native speakers. Sorry, your profile looks great, but so it was. I think it was that whole experience going through that prompted me to start it, and then I managed to find good jobs, and I think I kind of, rather than feel inferior, like it kind of led me to kind of really try to prove to everybody that I can teach English just as well or better than my colleagues. But I knew, like, talking to non-native speakers, that a lot of them felt really inferior, and they didn't know what to do about these job ads and how to find jobs. So I just wanted to, like, I suppose, create like maybe a space where people could talk about it, because I felt nobody was talking about it, which probably wasn't true. People were talking about it, but I felt there was no like one single space, like a blog or a website where people would be openly discussing these matters. So yeah, I suppose that's kind of how it got started.
Yeah, so I had another question, but you anticipated that. So I was kind of talk about let's say, TEFL equity advocates. So before this, there was nothing really. There was no place to congregate. But immediately when you put yourself out there, put that website out there, that people were like, yeah, this is a real problem we've had as well. And it's, it brought attention from the industry. Was there much attention before that? I mean, where was the issue before you?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know. I think especially non-native speakers always knew there was a problem. Maybe it's like, let's say with racism, it's not like before Black Lives Matter people didn't know that there was racism. Of course they did, and many people talked about it, but maybe we lacked like kind of like one, let's say, place or one movement, or like with Me Too or something like this, like sometimes you need like maybe one place where people can go to, or like a hashtag that they can use, and then like all these people that I suppose have always talked about it or have always felt that there is a problem, they kind of start congregating in one space. And I think it creates a bit of a snowball effect and draws everybody's attention to that problem. Because again, yeah, like with Me Too, I think everybody knew that there was there were big problems and sexism and all that, but and people talked about it. It's not like people didn't talk about it, but I think that like it just channels the attention in one specific direction, I think, which probably helps.
Okay. And so you brought out the website and, started publishing articles. I know you presented a lot at various conferences online and in person around the world. And I remember there's a moment maybe at the IA TEFL conference, wasn't there, that there was a kind of a watershed moment that there was, is it Silvana? She made a speech, Silvana Richardson, is it? Did I get her name correct?
Yeah, she gave a plenary talk about at IATEFL, which I think was very, very important, because obviously those plenary talks at IATEFL, there's hundreds of people in the auditorium, and then everybody starts talking about it. So that was definitely a very important moment. Yeah.
Okay, so that's one thing, of course, and at let's say teacher conferences, people have a certain mindset, and I don't think there would be many what we would say contending voices really to what you have to say. But the real problem is the schools themselves, isn't it? And especially, I think you were saying at that time in Europe. I mean, the situation maybe is a little bit more complicated here in Asia because the visa issue, and it's but in Europe, of course, I think you brought this up with me as well. There's European legislation around this. So what kind of headway did you make there with schools and throughout Europe?
Yeah, I think a lot of schools became more and more aware of it, and I think a lot of school owners also started realizing that I think from a business perspective, which we can talk about in a little bit, also talking about my business, I honestly think that it's a silly business strategy to market yourself that we have native speakers, because you're missing out on such a huge pool of highly qualified and experienced teachers. I mean, if we just extrapolate from the numbers of native and non-native speakers of English, I mean, it's 80% of people, or 90% of people who speak English are not native speakers. So if the numbers are similar among English teachers, which they probably are, then you're honestly kind of ignoring 80% of job candidates for your job. And now, when I hire for my company, Academic English Now, a lot of applications that I receive are from non-native speakers. And it would be very silly of me just to kind of ignore all of them and just pick from the 10% that are from, native speakers, because I would definitely be missing out on some great candidates. In fact, I'd say my best employee is a non-native speaker. But again, I didn't choose her because she's a non-native speaker. I chose her because she was a great candidate for the job. So I think the whole business proposition is wrong, because I get it that you feel like your clients are looking for native speakers, but ask yourself why. Well, if you put ads everywhere that we have native speakers and we'll teach you British English, then of course people will ask for native speakers. That's a no-brainer. But if you think from a business perspective, what is a business? Okay, a business is an exchange of money for value. What is value? Value is basically the results that the clients get divided by the time it takes them to get those results, and the effort, the perceived effort that it takes the client. So, if you can offer more value to the client, you can charge them more money. But what you need to be focusing on, I think, is the results that you offer the clients, and who delivers those results, whether from which country they are, what they look like, and what's the first language is irrelevant. But I think a lot of language schools have got themselves into this mess because for years they've been advertising themselves as we have native speakers and therefore we better, and now they can't get out of this mess. But I think your business will be way more profitable if you just focus on delivering clients great results. And if you think about, who is my ideal client? What problem do they have? And what is the desired situation? It's really that simple. And then if you can deliver them a superior result in less time with less perceived effort on their side, then you deliver more value, which means you can charge more money and you will have a better business. So I think the whole proposition, and I think it's slowly as well dying, fortunately, but I think it's a flawed business model to start with. You can have a much more profitable and better business model if you do what I've just described.
Okay, very well put. A problem I've seen, though, and maybe co-opting this issue and using it to ill ends, is a lot of schools are advertising that they're non-native speaker friendly, if even that's politically correct anymore. I don't know what the latest terminology is, or if there should be one or the other, but we'll park that one. But is that they say they're non-native speaker friendly, yet they offer a lower salary. That's a real problem.
Yeah. I think I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but he did a study, I think, showing that precisely what you say, that even though supposedly the schools employ both and equal opportunities and whatnot, non-native speakers are paid less. And I think specifically there was a lot of evidence that Filipino teachers are paid much less, even then. So that there's a lot of nuanced discrimination here, because probably if I went to Asia, and I got a job because I'm white and Western looking, I would get paid more and I might get better conditions than potentially, a native speaker of color, who is maybe of Asian origin. So there's a lot of like very nuanced discrimination that those schools do, unfortunately, and it's really, really sad. And I honestly think, like, you know, if I think from my clients' perspectives, like, you know, at the moment we have over 450 clients, and like not a single one of them cares where the person is from. Like the only thing your clients care about at the end of the day is the result. You know, that's the only thing like my clients want. They want to publish papers in high impact journals as soon as possible. And if we give them that, then I mean the you know, the classes could be delivered by whoever. But that's the only thing, honestly, the clients care about. Now, again, as I said, like if you have always positioned your business as, you know, we have native speakers and everywhere in your ads you put that, well, then don't be surprised that clients ask for it. But you know, as I said, that's not really, I think, in business what clients want in my experience. Like people want results. If you think about yourself, like if you were to sign up, you know, let's say for a language course, I mean, what do you want? Like you want a specific result, probably, right? Maybe you want to communicate with, you know, with Japanese colleagues in Japanese and have great conversations with them. That's kind of the result that you want, right? And the problem that you have now is that you always lack in confidence and you feel embarrassed when you speak Japanese or whatever, right? And, you know, so what you want to do is just like position your business that you're delivering that result and solving that big problem for people. And who does it is honestly irrelevant, as long as they can deliver the result, of course, right?
Yeah, it sounds pretty much familiar. You know, Hayden Christensen's books, I'm sure you're familiar with the jobs to be done, isn't it? So why do people buy milkshakes? Or, you know, because they want to drink it in the car or on the way, you know, so it's very much how a lot of English teaching should be focused, and is you know, we teach it, somebody wants to feel less embarrassed, they want to be able to talk to the grandchildren, you know, if they come from, let's say, international marriage. What I wanted to get onto, actually, and just talking about the Filipino teachers, and that's very much a case here in Japan. There's a few websites that I know the Filipino teachers are paid very, very low. I mean, there's a flat rate. You can get unlimited classes with, and of course, it's time zone friendly here in Japan as well, maybe China, wherever, Korea. But it's something like 4,000 yen, 30 euros, something like that, 25, 30 euros, and get unlimited classes. But I think the teachers are teaching like 10 classes a day or something, maybe 40 minutes, maybe 5 days a week. But, you know, that's a battery farm, really, isn't it? If you have to teach 10 classes a week. So the reason why I brought you onto the podcast, not the only reason, of course, Marek, you know, I wanted to chat with you, is that I think, and I had a guest about a year ago, John Hayes, who, if I'd put a link in the description for the listeners, if you want to listen to it as well, John's journey about building a collective for teachers is teachers don't get paid enough, native or non-native, you know, they're not getting paid enough. So was that what you felt as well, that you felt from personally, you were being undervalued for the work that you were doing, and you decided to break out on your own and say, I can make more money? Was that? Yeah.
I think at the beginning, I probably didn't realize it because, you know, I was just like many other English teachers. I just wanted to travel the world and go to different cool places. And, you know, if the salary was enough to pay the bills, I was, I suppose, content with it, because I could, you know, I lived in Costa Rica, I lived in Hungary, I could travel, you know, go out, and it was all fun, like when I was like 21, 22, 3. But then obviously, you know, I slowly started realizing that, you know, you can't really survive on like $1,000 or $2,000 a month, or you can't have any savings at all. You can't buy a house, you can't buy a car, none of those things. You know, you can't really go on like nice holidays, and you know. And then when I started getting more qualified, you know, I got my Delta, and then I got my PhD. You know, I could obviously get into better positions. I started working at the university, and at the beginning, that was like, wow, like now I feel like I'm well paid, you know. But yeah, I think overall you start realizing that we seriously undervalue. But for me, I think it wasn't necessarily like that I wanted to make, let's say, 10K a month that got me starting my own business. I mean, I've taught in a lot of universities, and I've designed academic writing courses and delivered them at different universities. And I think you start kind of realizing what is working and what is not working for those in those courses. And it's sometimes difficult in bigger organizations to maybe like implement certain ideas, because there are certain ways in which things are done, the curricula are maybe set and things like that. And I think already with, TEFL Equity Advocates, I've kind of tried designing online courses, I've tried selling an online course or two, and I've had an interest in kind of, maybe going out on my own. And with academic writing, I think I was pretty sure I could deliver like a superior service. And I knew very well what the students that I was teaching were struggling with and how to help them. So that's what kind of prompted me to I think try and develop an online course. And really like the final trigger, because I was still working at the university at that time full time, the final trigger was that I was approached by somebody who worked for that university, who I had met before, and he said, like, look, we have a project, we have a grant with these PhD students in Bolivia who are partially doing the PhD in Bolivia, partially in Belgium. They need help with academic writing. We would want you to develop an online course for them. So I said yes, as long as I can keep that online course and it's going to be mine on my website. And they said, yeah, sure, no problem. So they paid me to develop an online course, which then I got to keep, right? So that was kind of the trigger, because obviously, if you're working full time, you might have ideas, but it's kind of difficult to start something, right? So I started that, and and then I had the problem that I had a course, but I didn't know how to sell it, and nobody wanted to buy it, which we can get into, So that's kind of how it all started. And really I think it was almost a year, that's like literally nobody wanted to buy it, and I had no idea how to sell it. And I tried everything at the time. I would do like Instagram stories and go on Twitter and you name the social media. I would just like try to do everything, and just nothing worked for a very long time. And I was lucky that I still had like other sources of income, but it was I'd say 9 months or 10 months of just like just not getting any sales at all. And like funnily enough, I would lower the price as much as I could, and still nobody wanted to buy. And that there is this idea as well, I think, in ELT, that we have to offer kind of low ticket products, because everybody charges $19 an hour. You go to Udemy and you can have courses for like $9 and things like that. So we have to offer cheap products. So that's what I thought. Like, so I would just like, oh, if somebody doesn't want to buy it for $199, I'll just lower it to $99. Oh, people are not buying it, I'll just lower it to $79, and then maybe people would buy. So I kept on kind of constantly thinking that, it's the price that's the barrier, and it's funny because like that very same product, I mean, obviously with iterations and stuff like this, but it's basically the same service and the same product, now costs $5,400 for 6 months, not lifetime access or anything like it. So it's quite funny when I look back at it. But obviously, the reason why I was trying to lower price and I was thinking that the price was the barrier was obviously, that whole idea in ELT. Everybody tells you that you cannot charge more, that students don't have money. And I keep on like, whenever I talk to even like friends in ELT and they ask me about my business and stuff like this, usually the immediate reaction is like, oh, that wouldn't be possible in my niche. Oh, people in my country or my students don't have the money. So there's this like widespread idea that like this is not going to work. So that was for me a huge stumbling block to get over that kind of limiting belief that it actually is possible, to sell a higher ticket product and have a different sort of business when you're not charging per hour, but you're charging per client result.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great things you mentioned there, and I just want to kind of pick up on a few things. And one was before we came on the podcast here, Marek asked me could he share the video, and I shared with him. I said no problem, and we reciprocal links, whatever. So you had good nous, which maybe some listeners may need to take some advice from you on, is that you take control of the copyright, you take control of your own content, because I think it was not in the ELT field, but I heard from somebody else actually in a different field, academic field, and they said they were asked to run a seminar, and these the PhD students run a seminar for, I think it was 90 minutes, and they were paid $500 or sorry, €500. And the individual in question said to me, wow, this is great, 500 euros. But as I said to this person, it was, well, actually, that person is selling that for 500 euros many, many times over. And,
Absolutely.
You realize that, you knew that anyway. So that's the value,
But it's interesting what you say. And I think and we sometimes tell this anecdote when we talk to potential clients, when they kind of, sometimes you'll get a client who say, oh, this is really expensive. Why only 6 months? Why so expensive and stuff like this? And what you say about, let's say, oh, it's going to be $500 for this hour, So there is this anecdote that, this guy is in a bar in Spain, and he sees Picasso, and he's, he kind of embarrassingly approaches Picasso, and he's like, please, could you draw me on a piece of paper? And Picasso, maybe he's a bit drunk or whatever, but he says, yeah, sure, okay, why not? Just to get rid of the guy, And then he takes out a pencil, just sketches something, whatever, and shows it to the guy. Look, that's you. This is going to be $100,000. And the guy is like, well, but it took you 5 seconds to sketch it. And Picasso is like, yeah, but it took me 65 years to learn how to sketch something like this in 5 seconds. Exactly. So that's kind of the idea. That it's like, I'm not charging you for that hour. I'm charging you for the result that you want to get. So is it, do you want to publish that paper in a Scopus Index journal? Yeah, I do. No, for sure. And it's really important for you. Oh yeah, it's really important for my career. Okay. And do you prefer we did it in 1 hour? Or do you prefer me to continue working on it for 1 year? No, I'd much rather you did it in an hour. Okay, well, that's why we charge you 5,400 or whatever it is, right? So yeah, I think sometimes people have this misguided idea that, the longer something takes, the more expensive it should be. But it's completely the opposite. Like if we come back to the value equation, and that's something that Alex Hormozi talks about. He's really famous in the, kind of...
A big fan of Alex myself. Book. Yeah, I've both his books now. Yeah, I think he's got a gym book as well, but I haven't read that one. But it's the newest one as well.
He's amazing, and he's got this value equation as well. And, the result divided by time, So what you want to do is lower the time as much as possible that it takes somebody. So, if I was to give you a pill that made you publish papers in Scopus Index journals tomorrow, that would be infinitely valuable. I could charge you whatever I wanted to, right? And that's why all those, the supplement business is such a huge industry. It's a much bigger industry than, let's say, going to the gym, because going to the gym takes effort and time, and taking a pill takes no effort. And I think that's kind of the opposite of how, as English teachers, we believe we should sell our products. Because we believe, okay, so if I make this course longer, and if it lasts 60 hours, then I can charge more than if it lasts 30 hours. And that's how language schools also operate, right? If you take a longer course, you pay more money than for a shorter course. If you have 3 hours a week, you pay more than if you have 1 hour a week, right? But actually, doing something for longer delivers less value to the client. And that's what we did as well in Academic English Now. now we went from 12 months to 6 months, because really what we've noticed as well is that we can deliver the client's results faster, and they want to get the results faster. So we're working on how can I, deliver the same result to the client with less effort in less time, basically,
That's exactly, and we'll put a link actually in the description. Alex's book was, I think, do I have it here? No, maybe I have it in the other room. Is 100 million offers? Is that right?
Yes.
The new one is 100
that's
million
yeah.
leads, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. It's a
Leads,
good
yeah.
one as well. But actually, the 100 million leads, because I used to be a professional salesperson, I didn't really get such. I mean, it was quite good. I liked the whole 100 contacts, 100 days. I like that kind of setup, but didn't learn so much from that. But the leads, I really did about positioning.
I think, like with everything, it probably depends how much you already know.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I think that the stuff that he talks about is, it's very logical once you understand it. But like, he has this uncanny ability of like really presenting incredibly difficult things in very simple like equations or drawings, like this value equation, right? Once you understand it, it's like, duh, like this is a no-brainer. But but I think a lot of people don't understand that this is how it works. I didn't, certainly.
He also gives a good anecdote, which you'll remember, of course, about the hot dogs and the professor, wasn't it? The hot dog, where's the best really place to sell hot dogs? And what was the answer? Do you remember?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's, it's where the hungry people are, so it's the audience. Yeah. And that's totally true as well. So I suppose, if you're trying to start a business as an English teacher, you shouldn't think about what you want to offer. That was my problem. That's why nobody wanted to buy my services, because like even earlier with TEFL Equity Advocates, I had these ideas about pronunciation and stuff like this, which I still think are great and I love them and I'm very passionate about them. But that's me. I'm passionate about them. I never thought about, okay, well, what is the audience and what does the market actually want? I didn't even think, who is my ideal kind of client avatar? What problems do they have? What is it that they want? Right. And then Alex Hormozy as well talks about, the obviously the size of that market. Is that market growing or declining? Like newspapers are declining, for example, now. And the purchasing power as well of that market, because you could have a great business proposition, that solves people's problems, gets them to the desired result, but you're offering it to a market that has no money. Right. Like, let's say, people without jobs, right? And then you're not going to have any business. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's the product market fit, isn't it? And we just go back to the example of English language teaching. A lot of people are, what would we say, bamboozled really about what to do, what to teach. I mean, there's teaching for exams, there's travel to English, teaching kids. If you're setting up a business, and then who is the market that wants this product, isn't it? It's almost overwhelming. And as you say, where is the money in the market, and where the growth is, let's say here in Japan, is teaching for exams. TOEFL, IELTS will always make money because there's an immediate need, isn't there? There's money because the parents are able to pay for the children to go to Ivy League universities or go to Europe. So the money is there. So, that's a mainstay of a lot of businesses here. But if you were, let's say, I think I've mentioned before to some other guests on the podcast that it's maybe a bad idea. I don't know what your take on it, but from their perspective, it was a bad idea to take on the big guys, try to do too much, rather get your own niche, work on that, and look at the problems that niche has, the spending power that they have, and what you can offer, and if it's a superior product. And I think you say in your LinkedIn post as well, it's not about the marketing, it's about the quality of the product, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think, I don't know if you or the listeners have read Blue Ocean Strategy.
Yeah, I've read it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good book. So I mean, what they, the whole concept is basically, you of course you can't really compete with the big guys or girls. Like I sell simply academic writing services. Let's call it like that, right? So I compete against universities like Harvard, Oxford. Every university has academic writing centers, every single one, especially in English-speaking countries, right? And most of those services at those universities are free, right? So if, as an English teacher, you're thinking, okay, my market is saturated, everybody's charging low prices, and then there are these big players, I can't compete, you're totally wrong. Because, yeah, I'm in a market, again, where there are like free academic writing centers at universities for PhD students, right? There's these like huge universities that offer probably really good services as well. So how do you so that's in the blue ocean strategy. I think they call it the red ocean, right? That is just full of sharks, and you go there and those sharks will eat you and you will die. Or you will have a race to the bottom where you'll have to continue lowering and lowering and lowering your prices until you get to free products. But in my market, you could even offer it for free and people would still prefer their own writing center, right? Because it's free as well at the university. So I think, yeah, what you said, Philip, that you want to carve out a niche on your own. So I think the mistake is that people think, oh, I'm going to teach academic writing, I'm going to teach IELTS. That's not really a niche, I think. You've got to think really like, who are you helping? Who is that specific client avatar? And yeah, what are you helping them to achieve? And if the market is very saturated, what is your unique mechanism as well? So, for example, if I continue just kind of like selling academic writing services, I don't think I would have the success that I do now. So, you want to pick a specific group of people and really analyze them. That's a really important thing. Like, what are the big problems that they're struggling with? Because even within my niche, let's say PhD students or researchers, there are lots of big problems. Like, for example, people don't know how to analyze statistical data. People don't know how to design research studies. People don't know how to manage the time and beat imposter syndrome. Like, there's so many different problems that you could help people with. So you want to, but I think it all starts with that, right? So, okay, I want to help Japanese college students get into universities in the Western world. Okay, well, what problems do these people have? It might be TOEFL, it might be, getting a higher score, but it might also be that they're burned out, right? And demotivated. That there could be lots of problems. So you want to list all these problems, and then what is it that they want? What are their desires? Because like initially, I didn't know that people wanted to publish in Scopus Index journals. That was like the thing, right? And that people usually wanted to publish 3 papers every single year. That was like a thing. I didn't know that. And I wouldn't have come up with it just sitting in a room and talking to myself, looking in a mirror. Like, you have to talk to people, message them, get them on calls and find out what they want to achieve. And then if you do that, then you're positioning yourself in this blue ocean where there will be much less competition, and you can position yourself as the expert to go to, right? Because, yeah, of course, somebody could now try to copy what I'm doing, but it would be very difficult, right? Because I've already established myself as the go-to person to do what I'm doing. And there's other competitors, but they're not that direct, right? Because they're, for example, helping PhD students write a PhD thesis. Okay, so that's slightly different. Or there's people like helping researchers in medicine analyze statistical data, or design qualitative studies and analyze qualitative data, right? So yeah, I think that's how you kind of carve out a niche for yourself, So you've got to really get very, very specific with that.
Okay. So if you don't mind, I'd like to rewind a bit, because I want to kind of lead on to your kind of your story at the beginning, your hero's journey, let's say, and things were not working out. What worked for you, and how can really help other people, the listeners on the podcast. So you mentioned, and you and I probably, and a lot of the other guests, we have experience with like doing online stuff, online marketing, and listening to the podcasts and the books. We've all read like the Blue Ocean Strategy. I think you were Crossing the Chasm as well as another classic, isn't it? Probably Jim Collins books, the Flywheel, and which I recommend as well for listeners. But so yeah, at the beginning you had this fallow period, let's say 1 year, nothing was working. So what were you doing? And in hindsight, what were you doing wrong?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one main problem was that I was selling an academic writing course. That was one big issue. I never thought, okay, what are the problems that the market is having? What do they want to achieve, and how can I help them with that? I never thought that. I created that academic writing course because somebody paid me to do it, and then I just had this product that I wanted to sell, right? So that was the first thing, right? I think the second thing was my huge limiting belief that it's only possible to sell. I have to lower my prices. That it's only possible to sell courses in ELT at lower prices. So I think that was the kind of limiting mindset that I had. Very, very limiting mindset. And the third one was like, I just didn't know how to do it. So I would just post, I suppose, Instagram stories and just like do all sorts of different things. But I think I was confused that the more likes or views I get, the more sales I will get. But now I tell people that look, you're not in the business of getting likes or followers. You're in the business of getting clients and making money. And of course, if you now like Alex Formosa, you have 1 million followers. Yeah, of course, that turns into a lot of money. But the thing is that he didn't grow his YouTube channel until he was making 10 million a year or 30 million a year. Right? He wasn't famous at all. Nobody knew him outside of the gym space or very specific, maybe people in the info industry. And, he's able to do all this content because he has 20 video editors and people working for him. So I think, I didn't have one maybe simple strategy to contact my ideal clients and convert them into real clients. I think these were the three big issues that I had.
Yeah, and it's come back to competing against the big guys. I mean, I've made this mistake as well, try to put out all this content there. And I think with Alex, I didn't know he had 20 video editors, but even you're right. When I first I read his book a few years ago now, maybe 2-3 years ago it came out, didn't it? And at that time, his YouTube channel was only getting a few hundred views for each video, I remember. But now you see it coming up, it's hundreds of thousands, and tens, hundreds, and then it was hundreds of thousands, maybe millions soon. So there's a lesson to be learned there, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, putting out content is kind of it's a long-term game, but it's not really going to give you clients immediately, because that's an indirect method of getting traffic. I think it's much faster to get them directly, and we can talk about that. And it's honestly not that difficult as long as you're very clear on the niche and the problem and what you help them achieve. So that was the first thing, that I had to clarify. Once I knew that, then I knew who to contact, right? Because I knew, okay, so I need to reach out to PhD students and researchers. So then, you choose one platform, I chose LinkedIn, and then you just find those people where they hang out. You go to groups, you contact them directly, you search for them, you add them, and you start conversations with them, and then, if they're struggling with a problem that you can solve, then you invite them to you can call it a strategy session, a free consult, a demo, or whatever it is. And then if you can help them, you sell them the service, right? So I think I lacked that kind of proven strategy that works. Obviously, there's more nuance to it. I'm just, kind of giving a brief overview here, but that's really what it is, I suppose.
And a lot of listeners maybe that are starting out and they'll be iffy about making sales and contacting people. And I know a lot of people, let's say in the ELT space, are, that's not their background, more in education. And but it's a disservice to people. They have a problem that you can solve for them. Okay. And if you, if nobody is offering that, it's a disservice, isn't it? That,
Oh yeah, of course.
yeah. And,
yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, go on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, so so then I think if we go on to kind of like what changed for me, like, I'm not going to pretend that like I just figured it out on my own, because that would be disingenuous. That's totally not true. I mean, what changed for me really, like the spark was, I signed up for, you might be familiar with Sam Ovens, and his consulting.com business, which he now sold to somebody else. And I, at that time, it was incredibly expensive for me. I remember it was almost 3 times my monthly salary at the university, what I paid this guy. And it took me like 3 months of watching his videos and his webinars to actually do it. And I just regret not doing it earlier and not paying that money for experts' help with my business, because I would have had a business way earlier. And that changed things for me. I like a lot of what I learned and what helped me to grow the business was what I learned from Sam Ovens and his up level consulting. That was really the spark that started shifting everything for me.
And that's a lesson in value exchange as well. It's expensive, but you're going to make much more money in a shorter time, isn't it? So that makes the investment worth it. So that's, for you, for somebody buying a course or for somebody selling a course, that's something to consider, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And it's, and I understand, because I did it, like how scary it is, because it was a lot of money for me at the time, but it was like the only thing I regret is just not doing it early. That's the only thing I would say.
And Sam Ovens, he comes recommended, and stay away from the fake gurus as well. We all know who they are. You can spot them online. So you went through the course with Sam. You were contacting people on LinkedIn, having conversations with them, finding problems. And then what happened next? It was just about building a funnel, isn't it? For people not familiar, is it like you get all the people at the top, and then soon you'll get the clients at the bottom as you go through the process, and some will drop out.
It was. I think it took me. I probably signed up for up level consulting in I think October it was like. I think it was like 2020 or something like this, and it took me until December to get my first client. So it was, it wasn't an easy journey. It wasn't like this that everything changed. I had to do a lot of hard work, but it was, I really I started honing in my message, and then, I got clear on who I want to help. And then I started talking to these people on LinkedIn, and then I started inviting, some of them to strategy sessions, and then started offering my service. And initially, I found a lot of people who were interested, but they obviously didn't have enough money to pay me. And then, I think around the end of November, December, I got my first client who paid me around $2,000 at the time, 2,000 euros at the time, the service cost. And I still remember like how incredible that was. I still couldn't believe it. I had to pinch myself that finally, yes, I felt like, I'm getting on to something here, and then from then it's, I remember in December, I got like another, I think around 6 clients. So by like kind of mid-January, I probably had like about a dozen clients or more. And I had some cash finally in the bank. And then I switched on Facebook ads, and then that first month, like after 2 days of running Facebook ads, like I had to open up more slots on my calendar. I just couldn't believe it. Like my calendar was just like full with prospects, potential clients that wanted to talk to me about, what I had to offer. And, that first month, I think I got like, I could look at the exact numbers, but it was something between 15 and 20 clients. And then, every single month from then on, I would get this number of new clients, basically. So yeah, I mean, it was tough. I think if anybody tells you that it's going to be easy, you know, like there's a lot of like gurus online saying that like, yeah, sure, you'll make this amount of money in 5 days and it's going to be easy. It's a piece of cake. It isn't. It's difficult. But I mean, like if you really want to change things for yourself, like of course you can try on your own, but in my experience, like it's even more difficult and it's almost impossible on your own sometimes. You know, you do need to get mentorship from somebody that you trust, who has done it, who has done whatever you want to achieve. And I think coming back to the non-native speakers, that's a very interesting issue, because like actually for me, a lot of the times this was a selling point, because people would be, oh, like, so you're Polish. Yeah. Oh, you don't speak English as a first language. Wow, that's amazing. And you did a PhD in the UK. Yeah, I did. You did it in 3 years, I heard. Yeah, I did. Wow. Okay. So can you teach me how to do it? Yeah, sure. Do you know what I mean? Like people believe you more because you've done what they want to achieve. You're like a role model for them, you know? So I think that's another interesting kind of lesson in here. But yeah, I'm going off on a tangent. So I switched on Facebook ads, and like, you know, I started getting clients regularly, and I knew I learned how to run those ads profitably. And then I hired my first sales rep, Andrew, who's still with me to this day. So then there was, you know, the two of us selling. And then, you know, this year, like we just had too many clients. So I started hiring coaches, basically, because otherwise, like I would have just gone crazy, you know. And yeah, I was just close to a burnout. It was just really, really difficult, you know. It's like too many clients, chaos, things just breaking up. So I wish somebody had told me before. Again, like, you know, I signed up for a different business program because Sam stopped doing his programs. And you know, this guy called Gordon that I'm working with now, like the first thing, you know, that he says that you should hire is fulfillment. That's what you should outsource. And I wish somebody had told me that, because it would have been a very smart move to outsource fulfillment, meaning hire coaches who you can train that will be delivering your service, really. So that's what I did now. And then, you know, the next step is really, you know, having a sales team that can sell the product day and night, really. And then you can start stepping out of the business, I suppose.
So yeah, I
you know,
just want to wind it up because I know you have to go pretty soon. So 70K a month, you put it out there online and people doubted it, and you were able to smash those doubts. So what is the future for the company? What's the 70, 170, 700?
Yeah, I mean, in Polish we say that, you know, your appetite grows with eating. So I think it's the same, you know. But I've been honestly, like, recently thinking about like where I want to take this business. And I think, you know, I'm not sure if I want to have like, you know, something that, you know, I have like 40 employees and like it's making, I don't know, like millions and millions, because it sounds like really complex and really difficult and a lot of headaches. But I would like to have, so it's not maybe so much about the income goals, but I would like to have like maybe, you know, 4 or 5 salespeople, 4 or 5 coaches, you know, but delivering clients results, and maybe one person who just like manages everything, so that I can like step out of the business a little bit more. But, you know, with the model that we have right now and the prices that we have, you know, with that, you know, if once I hire 4 sales reps, then, you know, it would easily be making 200 or more every single month. That's, by the way, in sort of in cash collected, not necessarily in profits, right? So that's kind of another thing that is really important, because you might often hear online, okay, like you'll make 100K, but that people can be talking about the revenue, not even how much cash they collect, let alone how much profit they make, you know? So that's kind of another important thing. And yeah, my goal is to, you know, keep the profit margins at around like 40%. That would be ideal, really. And yeah, and I think, you know, I just want to be able to deliver a superior product. That's it. Like, because like long term, that's what's going to win, you know? Like if the product is so good, it delivers such superior results, you don't even need to market it anymore because everybody knows about it. Like, if we come back to Sam Ovens, he had such an amazing product with like up-level consulting and Quantum Mastermind that like, I mean, he could switch off Facebook ads and YouTube ads, which he did at some point, and people were still coming because they were all coming through referrals because everybody was getting sensational results. And that it was like the best product in the industry by a long shot, So that's also what I want to have, that, that my clients get superior results and they're all happy, and they never want to leave us. That would be, the ideal world, I suppose. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we leave it there
again,
today.
if you're kind of, if
sorry.
all these numbers,
yeah.
I was
I
just
thought you were in a hurry.
If all these numbers like sound really far-fetched to you, it's probably really important to say as well that, this works and you can get these numbers because you're selling a high ticket product. So, if you do the numbers and you want to make 10K as an English teacher and you have, you sell a product for $100, you need 100 people, right? If my math is correct, to get to 10K. But if you sell a product like I do for between 3,600 and 5,400, you need like 3 clients a month, right? To get to 10K in revenue. You can get 3 clients, surely, So I think that's kind of an important distinction that perhaps in ELT people don't understand. And that's why they're kind of like, oh, this is impossible. I'll never be able to do that. You can. And, I'm happy to kind of dive deeper into that and show people how I did it.
Fantastic. And that's a sweet note on which to end. And it's been our pleasure today my pleasure. Sorry, there's nobody else in the room here. For Marek Kiczkowiak. And Marek, you're on LinkedIn and Twitter and all the good places. And if people want to reach out to you, they can get you there.
Absolutely. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. That's where I usually hang out. Yeah.
Great. And Marek, thanks again.
Thanks so much, Philip. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to the EFL Magazine Business Podcast with Philip Pound. For more great advice and resources, check out eflmagazine.com. If you found this podcast helpful, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next time.